Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a grim, dark fable that uses philosophy and philology to force us to examine our own hollow social rituals. We're unpacking the Iron Ghost and the Sapphire Scalpel. This isn't just some abstract story. It's really more of a profound psychological autopsy of the ego. It tracks the journey from empty performance to raw truth. And honestly, it's going to make us question the metaphorical armor we wear every single day. So are you ready to shed yours? Let's get into it. Okay, let's plunge directly into this incredibly atmospheric world by listening to the booming, indifferent voice of the great star of high time. Picture this cosmic entity looking down from the zenith, its light like a cold, indifferent eye, condemning the quote-unquote ghosts, haunting their own lives. For eons, it's watched individuals seek validation in the sky, anchoring themselves to the earth with ridiculous heavy weights of clanking steel and ceremonial silence. The distant sky has finally fallen silent, because, well, the time for pretending is over. Section 1. The illusion of grandeur. Our inverted journey begins in the shadow of monumental temples, exploring an outer world architected entirely by what the text calls the illusion of external grandeur. Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast. On one side, you have these performative external achievements, the golden spires, the hollow social rituals, the endless chasing of a distant sky. And on the other, you see the massive internal emptiness they are desperately attempting to mask. The people in this landscape are exhausting themselves pursuing external milestones that actually just distance them further from reality. Their grandeur is quite literally just a mask for a stage. And because of this obsession with the external, this environment traps the living creature beneath a suffocating weight. It reduces human identity to mere sameness. Just think about that for a second. Identity as sameness. It's the endless repetition of a performative role until the actual breathing human being vanishes completely. You become the role, and the authentic self is buried alive. Section 2, the Knight's Iron Cage. Let's look at exactly how this illusion manifests in our first archetype, the Knight of Reason and his vibrating iron cage. Philology, the study of the history of language, gives us a huge clue here. By breaking down the root word armare, which means the act of fitting with weapons, we see this tragic trap. The knight genuinely believes his metaphorical armor provides strength. But in reality, his defense is a cage of sameness. Sure, it renders him completely unwoundable, but it also makes him entirely unreal. His plume and his sword act as this heavy language of status, preventing any raw warmth or shared honesty from ever reaching the man beneath the iron. So he stands at the threshold as an iron ghost, weighed down by this heavy language. He spends his entire life defending a realm he cannot even feel. He's vibrating with the tension of this lifelong performance, totally insulated from genuine experience by the very armor he thought would save him. Section 3. The Priest's Hollow Cavern. While the knight hides behind steel, let's move to our next character, the priest, clutching his heavy cowl to see how he hides behind the sacred. This brilliantly illustrates the deep irony of the priest's life. He completely mistakes his isolation for actual sanctity and holy depth. Look at the word sasser. It literally means to be set apart. The priest builds this wall of sacred silence to prove his devotion, convincing himself he's holy when the truth is he's just profoundly lonely. That wall of sacred silence isn't some holy protection at all. It's a hollow cavern echoing with the fear of being known. It's just a ridiculous, heavy weight of performance, driven by his deep terror of being truly seen. His silence completely lacks that true ember voice. He claims to be a guardian of the holy, but his performance has ultimately left him nameless and completely alone. Section 4. The Jester's Radical Disruption. But standing right at the mouth of the narrow alley is our fiercely disruptive catalyst, the jester, who actively mocks those golden spires. When systems of ego and performance become too rigid, chaos is pretty much the only cure. This chaotic figure wields a heavy stone, which the text calls the key to the stars. He uses that gravity to drag the inflated ego right down into the dirt, entirely subverting the social hierarchy. In doing so, he exposes the metaphorical armor of both the knight and the priest as the exact obstacles preventing them from truly engaging with the divine. The jester acts as the architect of radical vulnerability. By redirecting these seekers away from those unreachable heights and toward the absolute lowest point, the nadir of a cold stone cell, he is proving that earthly titles, sacred cowls, and clanking steel absolutely cannot survive where we're heading next. Section 5. The inverted journey begins. Here is where the inverted journey really takes hold. It's a dark psychological descent into an alleyway where the ego finally becomes entirely unsustainable. This breakdown isn't gentle. First, it demands the sovereign law of negating the social persona. Next comes a deliberate, agonizing reduction of all physical and psychological distractions. And finally, it culminates in an unceremonious stripping away of all performative robes. There's no pageantry here. It's a painful, necessary ritual. As those illusions fade, we are abruptly thrust into the suffocating dark. Picture the cramped, claustrophobic reality of a 6x4 stone room. The air thickens with the inescapable scent of stone and iron. This space violently strips away the vast, empty sky they were chasing, forcing them to confront the immediate reality of themselves in the dark. Section 6. The Sapphire Scalpel. This nadir, this literal rock bottom, is where the human and the holy intersection finally occurs, which brings us to the chilling final instrument of our explainer. To understand the scalpel, we first have to understand the flesh it cuts. Here, we must entirely abandon the unwoundable fallacy that the knight tried so hard to maintain. We have to embrace vulness, the capacity to be hurt. Actually, it's more of a requirement. The grim reality the text insists upon is that embracing this vulnerability, allowing yourself to be wounded by the truth, is the absolute only path to discovering a true thing. As the sapphire light of truth begins to bleed from the cell, it is utterly unforgiving. It illuminates the masks for a stage that we all still wear. It exposes every crack and false pretension, preparing the way for the inevitable, deeply painful incision of the scalpel. The scalpel doesn't destroy the human, right? It expertly and agonizingly cuts away the performance so that the true thing may finally breathe. We've followed the knight and the priest through the destruction of their illusions, guided by the jester into the brutal, healing light of the sapphire cell. So, as we conclude this dark explainer, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to carry back out into the light. Look closely at your own life. Which of your own performative robes and pieces of metaphorical armor are you terrified to shed in the suffocating dark?